Welcome back, everybody, and good morning. As we take another look at those out there communicating somehow, sending letters to God. As improbable, as impossible, as unbelievable as that might be, we're going to talk to a lot of people this morning. They're taking tangible steps to communicate. Somehow. With those we can't see, and today is no different. Got some fascinating topics to talk about this morning with a man who's always fascinated about sending letters to God or communicating. It's Dr. Trent. Welcome, sir.
Hey, good morning, guys.
You have started this show, and I am amazed at the response that we're getting here. You know, it was just kind of a plea. Is anybody listening? Not just to this show, but to us out there. You know, are we all alone? Is there an afterlife? Is there anybody that can reach us? You know, God, friends, divine spirits, I don't know, whatever. Or is this just all an illusion on our head here? This morning we've got an author who has some very telling, amazing stories to talk about this. She's written a book about this. Nicole Black, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Nicole.
Tell us the name of the book and what it's all about.
So I Can Still Hear You is the story of a father who guides his daughter on how to lead a virtuous life from the afterlife. So it's a father-daughter relationship that...
but death doesn't sever it. I mean, it continues on.
It doesn't sever anything.
That is what we all dream and hope of.
What is the inspiration for this book? Exactly. Was there a backstory to all this?
Well, my dad died.
Okay.
I was kind of assuming that, but okay. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
But my mom had actually died years prior. My mom died in 2000, and my dad died in 2014. And so I kind of like already knew like how to connect in with the other side, or the veil, if you will. But then when my dad passed, he and I were significantly closer than my mom and I were. And it was like he was with me in the car everywhere, you know. I mean, like little things that I couldn't explain away. And, you know, other people would be like, oh, well, there's a reason for that. Yeah, it was the wind, or it was this, and I'm like, you know, we all believe whatever it is that we believe in. And for me, it gave me great comfort to feel like my dad was still here with me. And so some of the things that started happening were in Santa Barbara, we had the Thomas Fire. And I got kind of curious about it. And I was like, well, what's this Thomas Aquinas College? And I was a little embarrassed that I didn't know, you know, a lot about it and about the cardinal virtues and of prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. And, you know, the more I started thinking about it, the more I thought, you know, these are all things that my dad definitely instilled in me. You know, that moral compass that parents, I have a 16-year-old, you know, and Dr. Trent, I know you have a child. We all try to instill some kind of a moral compass into our children. We can't direct where that compass points.
And around 16, it starts to go haywire and starts to spin around the dial constantly here. Yeah, exactly.
It did for me at 16. So, so that's where the inspiration came from. So it was my own stories. And then some of it is fiction mixed in.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wow.
So while he's contemplating that, I'm going to unpack some of what you just presented there. Let's start with, I'm a good Irish Catholic. I know a little bit about the saints and stuff. I'm embarrassed. I should know more. St. Thomas Aquinas was a scholar of the church, and he wrote a lot. I don't think I've ever read anything that he wrote, but I know he was a famous, you know, sort of, I guess, a scholar. I mean, he wrote a lot of stuff. What did he write? What you just casually rattle off his ideas of virtue here. I don't know that I or anybody listening knows what those ideas are.
Oh, what prudence means? And
yeah, I mean, what did he say? You say he laid out certain values of how to live a virtuous life. through
Well, he's
his
the one who
writing.
defined what the cardinal virtues are.
And I don't know what the cardinal virtues are.
So the cardinal virtues are fortitude, prudence, temperance, and justice.
All right.
Justice is kind of self-explanatory, right? It's doing the right thing.
Right.
Prudence is using caution. So like when you get to the edge of the cliff, you don't just jump, you look to see like, is there a trampoline down there to catch me?
Right.
Temperance is using moderation in thought. So it would be things like, someone says something to you, you choose how you temper that information and how you choose to ingest it.
And let me stop you on that one for 1 second.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm overstating this. Maybe we beat this horse to death already in everything we've done, but it seems like we don't live in temperate times. We live in impulsive times. The time between I read your tweet and I instantly start going, "What, you son of a so-and-so, how dare you say this? Bop yours, bum, bum, bum." I mean, we just spew. And not to get political, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole here, but I think everybody would agree that that was one of the hallmarks of our last president. Whether you like that or not, he spoke what he thought instantly. There was no filter. There was no hesitation. And it wasn't him leading society. I think it was him reflecting the world that we live in, which is everybody has this knee-jerk reaction to everything. Somebody cuts you off in the freeway. You don't temper it. You start immediately flipping them off and saying, "What did you do?" Am I correct? Temperance seems to be a lost art.
That temperance, common sense, common courtesy, they're all lost arts. I'm still hopeful they're going to make a comeback one day, but no, people don't. And I think we've done it to ourselves. We supersized everything and we made everything automatic. So now you don't even have to you don't even have to leave your home anymore. Things just show up at your door if you want.
And it's immediate, and I want more. Whatever it is, if I like it, if it's good, I want more right now. For some, it might be really bad, more alcohol, more drugs, more something, or just more love or more attention or whatever. But it seems like we're very much like little kids. We're not.
Amazon drones. Yeah. Amazon drones is on the way. You buy something, the drones will drop it off same day.
Right now, I can't even wait till tomorrow.
Right now.
Yeah.
I can't even wait 1 minute. I'm going to reply right away. And I have a rule of thumb. If I'm emailing with somebody and it starts to feel contentious, I will hold for 24 hours.
I've heard others say that. And I think that I don't know if that's a movement or just somebody's preaching that, but more and more I'm hearing people saying, I had somebody the other day, one of our show hosts came in and he was talking about we're talking just beforehand. He was talking about something that made him very angry. Some of his, I don't know, it was a client, a coworker, or somebody that he had a relationship with, like a business relationship with. And somebody said something and it set him off. And he wrote this nasty email back, "How dare you," whatever. And he said, "My wife convinced me to hold it for 24 hours. And he said, "Am I glad I did? Because once I cooled down, I'm like, it wasn't that bad. Okay, hey, a whole different response 24 hours later."
Absolutely. Temperance.
Right? What is the message that a reader of your book should take away from? What are some of the takeaway messages that you wish?
I think that the biggest takeaway message is that if you do want to communicate with the other side, you absolutely can. I'm a firm believer that both of my parents, although deceased, they're not gone into the ethers. They're just in the next room. They're there if I need them. And, and then they're there when I don't need them. And they want to give me that advice that I'm like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, right. Go in the next room. Go sit over there, Mom and Dad. All right. So that's a lot. And that's, you're preaching to the converted, probably most of the people listening here today. Why else would this whole show is that feeling that some of us have, and many of us have lost, that there is a connection after, that there is something there. Is there a God? Do these people live on? Will we see them again? Is there a continuing connection? Or is this all just a fairy tale and it's just the here and now and the present, and when we're gone, we're gone? There's nobody
What's
there.
Your experience like, Nicole? What is? Give us some examples of what you have experienced as far as the connection with parents.
And
or
how
with
does it manifest itself? How do you
Yes.
feel it? Or how do you know it's there? Yeah.
So for me, if I'm feeling low, I will just send out a call to my parents and, I'll say something like, just show me a sign that I'm on the right path or that I'm not, wasting my life or whatever. And usually if it's my mom appearing, a white butterfly will just float by and it'll be in the middle of nowhere. Like there shouldn't be any butterflies.
Yeah.
If my dad comes, it's always a monarch butterfly. He sometimes leaves like pennies. And I've started looking.
He leaves a penny, like just an actual
pennies.
coin somewhere here?
I'll be like in the Albertsons parking lot and I'm like, oh, there's a penny, like out of nowhere. And I'll go and I'll pick it up. And then I always turn it over and I look at the year on it because I started to figure out like, well, maybe he's trying to send me a message about like in 1996, you felt like you were on top of the world. You were doing this, you were working in Orange County, blah, blah, blah. Go back to that mentality. And it always happens at times where I'm doubting myself or I'm like, am I doing the right thing? And then boom, pick up a penny and it says 2002. And I'm like, oh, I remember what happened in 02.
Really?
You have added new meaning to the phrase, a penny for your thought. You're saying that penny actually means something. That one I've never heard before. Yeah.
With the way prices are going, he may need to leave more than a penny.
Yeah, have him move up to a nickel or a dime or something.
Can't afford anything anymore.
All right, so you see indications, and I gotta stop both of you and ask you this. I'm a history buff. I was a history major and fascinated with ancient history. Studied Latin, or took Roman history and all this stuff, and just fascinated those periods. And one of the things that struck me about those periods, we're always compared to the Roman Empire, good or bad, is that in their time, everybody took it for granted that somehow the gods, the divine, somebody was sending you messages. So they're always looking for omens, augurs, as they said. A bird flew by, and then what did that mean? And they're always trying to discern the will of the gods by looking around for some tangible sign. Somewhere along the way, we took that to be superstitious. Somewhere along the way, we took that to be childish. And so modern man doesn't look for signs in the sky like native people did, like ancient people did. What do you, and yet you're telling me you see this. You don't hear it in your head as much as you see some tangible sign that you're on the right path.
I see it. I hear it. I have a visceral response in my body where I will get up and leave a situation. And I never used to do that. But if I feel like, oh, okay, this isn't going to go, how I want it to, I have no problem getting up and walking away. But I used to.
But something in you so you look for not just a feeling or an internal voice, as others have said, but you look for a tangible sign. Show me a sign, God. And I think that's where so many of us struggle, me included. I look for signs all the time and I go, I guess I'm missing the sign here. I don't see where the off-ramp is. I don't see should I keep going? Should I not? I am not tuned in to the signs of.
Well, not everybody is like for sight, right? Clairaudient is you hear things. And, some people feel things, right? Some people are lucky enough that they can have all of the aspects of it happen for them. Sometimes it has to be like, it's how we are. Like for me, I know that when I am chaotic, like things in my life are chaotic, or I'm like, I have all these like moving parts and I don't know what to do. That's when I'm completely tuned out. I can't hear anything. A bird could drop right in front of me and start talking to me and I wouldn't even hear it. Yeah. But when I quiet my own mind and I really kind of rest into just being accountable for myself and being 100% responsible for myself, my actions, everything that happens around me, because there's nothing outside of me. Everything that's outside of me is just a reflection back to me.
So is it noise, Dr. Trin? Is it just I get too much noise, I've got blinders on, or what? What is it?
I think what Nicole's saying is that we have to be intentional, and we have to stop to listen. because if we're running 100 miles an hour and we're like, where's the voice? Where are you, God? You know, what's going on? And we haven't stopped to listen, then, and we haven't been intentional about it, we won't hear.
I'm going to give you an example of that. So I one of my favorite memories of my daughter, raising my daughter, she's now around 30, but when she was 12 or so, I remember taking her because she was so, like all these kids today, noise. I'd go into her room, she had the TV on, she had the music playing, and she's looking at her iPhone. And I'm like, pick one. You've got so much stimulation coming into your brain at the one moment. You can't possibly absorb all. Well, I have to. I just need all this stimulation, you know, constant stimulation. I think that's the ADD generation, as we call them, you know, this constant overstimulated society that we've created here. So I took her in the backyard and I said, close your eyes. Dad, I know, just 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, which seems like an eternity when you're 12 or 14 or whatever she was. I said, what do you hear? She said, nothing. I said, come on. You don't hear the bird? All right, I hear the bird. You don't hear the plane going over? All right, I hear the plane. What else? You know, just struggling to hear anything through the noise. I think that's where we live. So many of us have to have the TV on. I can't have silence. I got to have the TV on. I got to have the radio on. I got to have 12 things going. I got to... Really? Right. I've even read where there are places now you can go. There's a movement, this quiet world society. There are fewer and fewer places you can go without noise, without planes going overhead and stuff.
Why do we fear silence?
Yes.
Why do we feel like we always have to have something occupying our mind?
Absolutely.
I mean, have you thought into that, Nicole? Is there?
I have, and it's funny that you guys are talking about this because as you're saying it, I'm thinking, you know, one of the best moments in my day is when I'm sitting here in my living room and I'm in the process of moving. So it'll happen in my new living room too, but, and all the sound stops, like the refrigerator whirring. It's like, and it's like, you could hear a pin drop. And to me, that's pure bliss. That's where anything can happen. Like any thought that I have in my mind, if I want to manifest it, that's the time to do it because I have a clear slate, right? It's like having a whiteboard with nothing on it.
Without the white noise. We have no input. We have a show on, another guy does a show on here on our station. And in his real life, he is a designer for homes and really high-end hotels, spas and hotels and stuff. I don't know how he got into that, but that's one of his specialties. And he said the craziest thing he's seen in the last few years is people get into, you know, whatever, the places of massage and therapy and aromatherapy and quiet retreats and all this stuff they're trying to build into hotels and spas and everything. He said is that people will pay for a soundproof room. A silent room is the great. It's great that you give me the hot stone therapy and the hot yoga and all this. All that feels great. But can I just? Will you take my credit card and let me just go sit in a quiet place?
Wow.
And think about that. You got to pay to be silent.
Well, I think that goes back to like meditation and quieting your mind, and that is something that is. For me, was really, really hard to figure out how to do, like how to stop the noise and the chatter, you know, until one day it just clicks in and you're like, oh, that's how you get there.
How did you get there?
How did you get there? Yeah.
How did you get there?
Years of practice and giggling and like, you know, like, oh, I can do it.
Do we need guided? One of the things that came up early in doing this show, let's talk about the theme of it, this notion of letters to God, which I still find me personally uncomfortable, almost childlike. Letters to Santa, please Santa help me, please God help me. I'm going to physically write, which I don't write anything anymore because I write so badly. I don't have any cursive skills anymore whatsoever. You know, it's all just notes and snippets and graffiti. I might type it, I might speak it into my phone, but this notion of physically writing something out. And we talked about that it takes practice. And that's something we don't have the patience for to practice. I don't instantly know how to be in love and be a husband or something here. It takes practice. I don't instantly know how to play basketball. It takes practice. I don't instantly know how to drive a car. It takes practice. But relationships, and if you believe there is a God and building a relationship, we don't want to put any practice or time into that. I wanted a slot machine. I put in this, I write the request, and it out pops. I hold my hand up, and out pops the coins. Out pops the answer. In your case, literally, a coin appears. A little, please, Dad, help me, and a penny appears. So it is kind of like a slot machine. I don't know. Why are we so hesitant to learn how to do something? You had to learn how to be quiet.
I think that new things it's hard. It's like you watch like these basketball players and you're like, man, like, or like we're in the middle of the Olympics, right? And you watch like the gymnasts and you think, my goodness, I don't even know how people can like spin their bodies like that. Well, they didn't wake up doing it. They did it again and again and again. And that's what happened.
Years of daily practice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then when you get good at something, other people look at you and think, well, you're making that look too easy. And it's like, actually, it was really, really hard. So whatever looks easy, anytime you see things that look really easy, you have to know in your heart that that person has practiced a million times.
So does anybody,
right? Speaker, and you're like, wow, this guy he's dialed in.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, because he's given the speech like 700 times. Yeah. I hope he's dialed in at this point.
So does anybody here practice? Apparently Nicole has. Do you practice being quiet? Dr. Trin, do you practice learning to calm your mind and
What's that?
Listen? Yeah, right.
Nicole, teach us. So what are some tips in practicing quiet?
The best way, so I tried like 8 different ways, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sit, and then I'm gonna play music, and then I'm gonna do this, and then a book called Zero Limits found its way into my lap, and it's by Dr. Joe Vitale, and it's about Ho'oponopono. And
it's I'm sorry, it's about what?
Ho'oponopono.
What is that?
It's so I love Hawaii. I love all things Hawaiian. I used to live there. I fully plan on eventually one day getting to live in Hawaii again. Yeah. What Ho'oponopono is it's a practice where there is nothing outside of you. Everything is inside of you. So when you arrive somewhere and there's a problem, what's the one thing that's always there? It's you. So you are actually a part of the problem. Yes. And what it relates to is like data in our minds, that like old things from past lives that we're carrying forward that we don't need to carry with us anymore, right? We don't need 80 checked bags. Maybe one's good with a carry-on.
Yeah.
Right. We tend to carry more than we need. And so it's a 4 sentence practice that anytime something comes up, you say these 4 sentences. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And they can be said in any order. Ooh. And you just keep repeating it. So like if we were having a problem right now, I wouldn't be saying it out loud to you, but I would be repeating it over and over again in my mind. And I'm not forgiving you, I'm forgiving inside of me what is bringing up this angst or this like, this feeling of oppression is the word that's coming to mind. Like anything that's like negative that's happening outside of me is just a reflection of what's going on inside of me.
So would you type those in, Dr. Trin?
I'm typing it in. I'm sorry, please forgive me. And then what?
Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. And I love you.
Now, there are people who, I used to say I'm sorry all the time. I'm like, God, I've been practicing Ho'oponopono my entire life.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry.
But so there are people who say, I don't want to say I'm sorry, please forgive me. Guess what? You don't have to. You can just say the other 2 phrases. Thank you, I love you. And you're good.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset, and it's a reframing of whatever that situation is.
Yes. And then
Again,
all of a sudden, I say it and I'm like, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not angry that somebody let my cat out or,
And
you know,
and you're not even in any, and in all these four sentences, nowhere in here are you even admitting that you're wrong in your situation.
you're not,
nobody's
'cause you're
wrong.
not.
You're just getting past the notion of right and wrong. I'm sorry. I forgive you. What was the other one? Thank you, and I love you.
Yeah.
You're
Please forgive.
trying to get back to some simpler.
Sorry.
Let's strip away all the other things, layers that we add on here. Wait a minute. Who did
Wow,
this?
that's
But you
deep.
did this.
That's very deep, Nicole. I mean, just four simple sentences can address a lot of negative emotions that you experience in life or negative situations.
So they kind of think of it as like cleaning the data. So I'm also a school teacher. So like when I go into work, right, what do you want the blackboard to be? Clean, right? You don't want it to be messy. You want it to be nice and neat. And so we're all filled with programs and data and things that look, my grandparents lived through the Depression,
Right.
so they were like penny pinchers to the extreme,
Right.
and so like I took on some of those traits, not as well as I probably should have, but I did take on a little bit of the penny pinching traits, but that's not the way to live. You have to live as if abundance is always coming, right?
Yes.
Because if you don't, then you're always worried about what's going to be around the next corner. And worrying, I think they say it in the Bible. I don't know because I haven't actually read the entire Bible, but I think that worrying is a sin. And I think that it's something that we get bogged down in, and all these things that are in our minds that are like, no, it has to be like this. Why? It's just a questioning of well, okay, so and so says it has to be done this way, but what about if I just did it my own way, rather than just accepting the norm and
Again, you're just casually each of those could be a show in itself here. This notion of worrying. We live in a worrying society. I was taught to be always mindful, like I'm walking. The analogy I always had is, and this is horrible, I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, but this is kind of the way I felt from years of saying, be careful, look out, watch it, think through everything you do, because I'm older than both of you, but my parents were in the Depression. It wasn't my grandparents, it was my parents. And so that framed a fear in them, and it framed in them a sense of scarcity. There's very little money. Bad things can happen all the time. Look what happened to us. The whole bottom fell out of the world, and then we went through World War II, and that just totally scarred that whole generation into thinking, worrying about everything. And so I felt like I was walking through a minefield. That's the way I've approached life. Always trying to think, what's going to blow up next? Where is the next mine? I've always got my little mine seeker out, trying to find out what's going to blow up next here in life.
You're proving the point. Rather than looking at it as, rather than erasing all that, because that was their experience, and not to diminish their experience, but that doesn't have to be your experience, right? So rather than walking through it as what's going to blow up, what's going to go right? I think if we spend a little bit more time thinking about what we want rather than what we don't want, I think we'd all be a little tiny bit happier.
Oh, yes. And the thing with mental health, and as a physician, and I've seen this a lot in patients and families, and even in our own families, right? And is that depression, PTSD, and issues like that often deal with experiences of the past.
Yeah.
And those are experiences that we no longer have any control over because they're done, right? And it's how you view those experiences, how you frame those experiences is how you feel in here in your mind. And that's the past. Anxiety is a problem with fearing the future of what may happen, right? And guess what? We have no control over the future. The future isn't here. Right? When you look at just depression and anxiety, which 90% of Americans have, 90% of that stuff we have no control over. It's the past and the future. It's not now. What we have control over is what's occurring today, what's occurring now. And so that's why I love those 4 sentences, Nicole, because you get to reframe, you get to clean out all that data, and and what does Jesus say about now, right? And I think you mentioned what the Bible says, Nicole, and I want to show you a scripture in the book of Matthew, because I just did a real Google search on it. Matthew 34, and Jesus says 6:34. Jesus says, "Do not worry about tomorrow." Right? Not worry about the future. For tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough issues of its own. And quite honestly, Jesus is saying, live in the present. Live today.
That is so hard to do, because I'm always anxious about tomorrow and angry about the past or hurt about the past. I can't let go of the past. I tell myself over and over again, or I don't let go of the past. And
I choose not to.
Yeah, I choose not to.
You can do anything.
So again, I studied the Roman history and all this, and the Roman philosophers and there were several movements in the thing. We don't study philosophy anymore. Nobody studies philosophy. But the whole movement of the Stoics, we have such a negative term of stoicism, just sort of like my dad was stoic, nothing, he showed no emotion. He was just, tough guy, went through all this depression and war and everything else. But what they really tried to say was a calmness. And the great Stoic, he was an emperor and one of the leaders of the Stoic movement. You can go Google him because nobody reads his stuff anymore. Marcus Aurelius, Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius said, you have no control over what happens to you. None. Only how you react to it. It's a choice.
You realize that this has been said since the dawn of time. Marcus Aurelius, that is ancient wisdom. And now if you listen to like every self-help guru, they all say the same thing.
Yeah. Like it's brand new. We just came up with this. Oh my goodness.
It's not new.
Right.
But you know what is new is sometimes you can hear something 100 times and it doesn't land. It doesn't come in. And then somebody says it and you're like, whoa, that makes perfect sense. And that's all that matters, is that eventually you get the lesson.
So my father, as much as I said they grew up in a worrisome world of scarcity, and so you just grabbed onto whatever you could. I'd argue with my dad when I was in the 60s and 70s in college, what am I going to be? What's my passion? He'd say, just go get a job. Just get a job and be thankful. You've got a job. Oh my God, that's all we want. But yet his wisdom was, and I went to this over as much as I thought, Dad, you're worrying too much and you're not thinking deep enough, and you got to go inside yourself, Dad. And he didn't go there. He was just trying to survive in most of his life, growing up poor and fighting all this stuff he did. But here's what he said, and it's right to your point. In the midst of crisis, in the midst of something, my dad would say, I'd say, aren't you worried about your health or something? Or the operation, go in for a massive heart operation. I remember one time I said, aren't you worried? And he says, what's the point? He said, I'll worry when it's time to worry. I'll worry about things I can do about. I'm just turning myself over. That trust, I'm going to live or I'm going to die. Worrying's not going to help. And I'm like,
how can we teach that? So Nicole, how can we teach others to live in the present
and to surrender that fear to somebody else? I went to see a therapist years ago, and she used to say, well, you're a religious person. Quit worrying about all this stuff. Create a God box. Like I've said it a couple of times here. And I said, what the heck is that? And she said, well, maybe it's just a little exercise for you, but it's a box where you put your fears and your worries into the box and you say, here, God, this is yours today. And I'm like, I can't.
Guatemala, they have little worry dolls. You can like speak to your little worry doll at night. Your bed.
Really?
So there's a multitude of ways that people can learn how to do it. And that the thing is, it's like once you find the key to the lock, you have the combination. You can open that door anytime you want. But it's figuring out, is it a skeleton key? Is it this key? Is it that key? Right. And I think the best way to do that is to just try something, but don't try it one time. That didn't work. Give it, give it a fair shake, which is usually 21 days to instill a habit in you.
That's what they say. Yeah.
It can take a while, right?
So how do I unlock the key? Let's get back to your book here. We've wandered away from your book here.
Okay.
How do we unlock the key to communicating on the other side, behind the veil, as you so beautifully described it, or in the other room? Hey, Dad, are you there? You know, how do we, because all of us are shouting into the void, and I don't hear anybody answering. God, my parents who were also left this earth, I want to believe they're all there, but I don't. And part of it's the noise, and we talked about that. Part of it's letting go, but somewhere in there is trust. You know, faith is where science leaves off in my world. You can only prove so much, and then the rest of it's on faith. My dad had faith in the doctor. My dad had faith in God. My dad would just turn things over and not worry about it. How do we? And so you have faith that this is real.
To do.
Yeah.
Every time you're like, you know, like as Dr. Trin was saying, every time you go into depression, you have to just stop yourself. Like, nope, can't change that. It's already happened. Then you're sitting over here like, oh, here's anxiety calling on me over here. Well, wait a second. Why am I writing that story? If I'm going to write the story, I'm going to write it the way that I want it to end, you know, like not the way that like it goes negative. And so it's almost like, I guess the analogy that just popped into my head is like a fisherman, right? Like they throw out their line and then they start reeling it back in. I'm not a fisher person, so if I'm messing this up, I apologize.
I'm not either, but that sounds about right. Yeah, you throw it out and you cast your bait into
cast your bait, but if something doesn't go right, you don't like automatically, if you don't catch a fish, you don't go, oh, forget it. You leave the pier, right? True. You just put the thing again, you throw it back out again.
Do again and again. That's a great analogy. You don't catch the fish on the first cast.
Stay present. Attempt. Every time your mind goes past or future, go, whoa, where am I right now? And I mean, especially like you're driving in a car, like, whoa, stay present. Like those are the times where you really need to be present. And truly anytime like we go into the worrying and the fear and the anxiety, it is always to just look back like, wait, where am I right now? Am I okay right now today in this exact moment? The answer is yes. Move on.
What is are there any techniques what do you do to stay present, Nicole? Do you meditate? Do you do deep breathing? Or what do you do?
Fire alarm, low battery.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm worrying already about what's going on, and I'm thinking already. Yeah, it's great.
It was going off at 4:00 this morning. I'm so short that I can't reach the.
Same here.
So I was like, oh, I'll just reset it.
It beeps, and then later you don't even realize that it's beeping until somebody walks into the house and like, what's that beep?
No, it'll start screaming, fire, fire.
Or is it your dad trying to cut into the conversation here? Maybe he's trying to be heard in the background here.
So how do you stay present, Nicole? What do you do?
I literally just reel myself back in every time because I can feel it when I'm going towards that. Oh, what if? And then I'm like, okay, if I'm going to what if it, I am absolutely going to write the ending the way that I want it to be. So I will sometimes allow myself to go into that, like, you know, the future casting or whatever you want to call it. Right. But I always try to make it so that it's like something happy and joyous, positive, you know, like the negativity is what I think drags most of us down. And so as much as, so like I wear a crystal that's like protection, I wear it all the time. It's like my signature piece. And I'm not trying to protect myself from other people. I'm just trying to protect myself from energy, negative energy.
What do you think of this, Dr. Trin?
Car, right? Like, and somebody driving the car and then they, push on the brakes or whatever. And
Yep.
You have a choice.
What do you think of this, Dr. Trin?
Like, cool. They just saved me from an accident, or I'm going to yell at this guy because I had to do something I didn't want to do.
It's all here. It's all in here.
Here.
I agree. I love it. Have you ever tried, have you ever heard, lately I've been trying breathing exercises.
Oh,
you ever heard of this guy who's like the Iceman? He's called Wim Hof. He
No.
goes in. He goes into. Is he in? I think he's in the Netherlands or something like that. But his thing is he goes and take. He goes into the ice water, and spends minutes to like up to an hour in the ice. And now he's teaching people to do that. And there's actually some scientific research showing that if you immerse yourself into ice water, it stresses out your cells, your cellular systems, and it has positive health benefits. But what I've learned from trying this out, I've tried it out twice already, going into a tub of ice water, is that it makes you stay present.
Yeah.
Don't think about anything else.
It's freezing. You can't think of the past or the future. It's the moment right now.
It's a mental reset. It's a mental reset.
Interesting.
And you go into this ice water, you stay in for as long as you can, right? I did it twice. Yesterday was day number 2. And let me show you here.
There's Dr. Trin in a bucket of ice. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, you really did it. How long did you stay in for?
So the first time I tried it, about a week ago, was like, 45 seconds. Today, it was 1 minute and 45 seconds.
That's amazing.
And your body actually accommodates for it. But what it did for me was that it was a physical and mental and emotional reset. It's very interesting. It's just a strategy to reset. Now, I don't recommend that everyone goes in a bucket of ice water, but as an example of staying in the present, I use that to really just stay in the present.
But look how extreme we have to go to reset the noise, to break the pattern, to clear the mind, to wipe the blackboard clean.
Of course.
What seems to be such a simple truth seems to elude us, and we have to go to extremes. People who also say extreme athletes who do this because they focus. In the moment you're jumping out of a plane, climbing a mountain, you got to be present there. You can't have any thought but the next step, because if you do, you die. And it's that forcing yourself to an extreme position where you got to be intensely focused on, and very intentional and focused on the present right now. We have to go. I'll give you another interesting thought that came to my mind is, all right, so this is letters to God. And you're telling us that letters to God don't go unanswered, that even those on the other side can communicate and call and connect with us still, even though it seems like that's been severed or they're gone. Look at the letters of God. I've tried to look online at what people do write, and people who do this practice of actually physically writing something. It's called journaling. Many of us have experienced that, focusing your mind, getting clear on what you're doing by having to write it down. There's some of that. Some of it's the practice, the repetition, saying it over and over again, your mantra, saying something over and over and over and over and over again to block out everything else and just stay focused. But look at when people write letters to God. They are always about fears and worries. They're rarely, hey, wow, just want to say thanks. Just want to say wonderful. It's always, please, God, help me do this. Stop this. Give me strength. I need this. It's always, and not always, but it's often a plea for something, either to heal me from the past, or, I'm sick, I've been sick, I lost somebody, I'm depressed, I'm grieving, or this fear and anxiety, I'm missing something. It's a sense of a loss. It's a sense of scarcity. Please give me this. Please help me. Please, please, please. It's rarely about, it's not an adult conversation. You wouldn't say to your spouse or your loved one every day, please help me. Don't leave me. Stay. It's not that kind of pleading relationship. So we want to get out of that. How do we get there?
Trial and error.
You get there with 4 sentences. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And
if all else, get in a bucket of ice water and shake yourself out of this thing.
Yes, you guys need to get a bucket of ice water. Okay, Paul, you live relatively close to me in Orange County. I'm gonna get you in a bucket, a tub of ice water.
That sounds No, I don't know if I like that I sounded, but I'm willing to try it. Yeah.
Just bring your Speedos. You'll be all set.
Well,
Really...
I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's maybe what this show is, a reset, a ancient wisdom we talked about. This isn't new stuff. This is what the ancients understood better than we did. They felt a connection to the divine. They looked for signs in life. They took a simpler view of the past and the future. They weren't always trying to control everything like we do. I'm a control freak. I want to control everything. I'm trying to control this conversation half the time here. I can't just let it wander. We've got only a couple minutes left. I'm looking at the clock here. So what is it that, because we didn't really dive deep into what the key points you wanted to take away is, if you let go, there is a connection there, which many of us long for.
I think the question becomes like, especially like when you're a control freak and you want to no, this has to go this way. Like, just ask yourself the question, well, what would happen if I just let go?
What's the worst?
And then just let your mind go, I don't know. Like, I like to do it when I'm like by the ocean, and then I get in the water and I'm like, okay, I'm holding on so tight to the surfboard. What would happen if I just let go? Oh, look at that. I'm just floating. I'm just here. Nothing's happened. There's no shark,
Yeah, right. Shark.
Just let go, rather than like holding on so tight, it's like your hands get tired.
Now, your book, Nicole, this year won a medal in the Independent Publishers Book Awards. Wow. So
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So what was it in the book that just, grabbed on to folks when they read it? I mean, what was the reason it won this medal?
Why did it resonate? What was the connection?
Why did it resonate? What was it?
I think, so I've heard a few different things. Most people have said that that the reason why they think that it won is because it's not a self-help book at all, but because of all like the dad wisdom that kind of comes in, it can sometimes feel like that, but it really was meant to be like, just visionary fiction. And I think that that's why it won in that category, because it is just taking things and looking at it from a new set of eyes. Like, if I'm always looking through my big blue eyes at something and I can't figure it out, like maybe if I just borrowed Paul's blue eyes and looked at it through his
I got blue eyes. Yeah, that's for sure. I've got the Irish blue eyes.
I might be able to see something different,
Wow.
It's all about it really is all about letting go.
It's about believing, and that is so hard to believe in anything today. We don't believe in the church, or we don't believe in our leaders. We don't believe in government. We doubt everything. We don't believe I don't believe my neighbors are going to do the right thing. I don't believe in anybody. I'm not sure I believe in myself half the time. But I want to believe what you said, because I remember once a conversation I had with my late father, who was a powerful force in my life. Sometimes it was a rock and we bashed against each other here. But he was always there, the rock. I'm going to get all choked up here. If I needed his guidance or help, I knew he was there. And one time we talked about his dying in the last couple of years, and I got all choked up, and he looked at me so shocked, and he said, because I'm an only child. I said, when you're gone, I'm alone. And yes, I have a wife and kids, but I'm the last of the Mohicans. And he said, I'm not going to leave you ever.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my God, I wish I could hear him sometimes. I wish I could have the faith, clear my mind, and see what you see so clearly. I think that's a beautiful connection that we all aspire to have still.
What I would encourage you to do is to stop looking so hard. Things really are always hidden in plain sight, right? Like somebody asked me once, well, if somebody was coming and you needed to hide something in your house, where would you put it? And I said, right by the front door on the table.
Well, they're looking around.
The last place anybody would look, right as they walked in, right?
Isn't that the truth?
So sometimes it's where you least expect it. And sometimes, like you'll hear something and be like, wait, Dad, was that you? Just don't question it. Like, yeah, okay. he, like, whatever, my car stopped, my car decided to break down on the side of the road for whatever reason. And maybe it kept me from being in this, like, I don't know, 20 car pileup or whatever it is that, like, I find out, I don't know until later on. Sometimes the signs aren't things that, that are tangible, or that they wouldn't make sense to anybody else, but as long as you feel a connection, and that's different for different people. Like, some people go to the cemetery and that's where they feel the connection with, right? Because the physical body is kind of still there,
right?
What's left of it, the bones and the life force is still there. Some people, can just do it wherever, some people do it in the ocean, wherever it is that you feel like super comfortable, and you can just connect in, just say, like, hey, Dad, show me a sign. And almost like as if you were, like, floating in the ice bucket, if you were floating, like, in a pool, or if the ocean's too scary, like on one of those little life raft things, just let go and see what happens,
Let go, let God.
Let go and let God. That's going to be a good theme. I'm going to remember this one. Let go, let God. Yeah. So simple and straightforward, and yet so hard.
So hard. I can't.
We all want to hang on to our stuff, right?
You already had it.
And we want to be in control, man. Maybe it's a male thing, but I can't let this just unfold. God helps those who help themselves. I have to go out and take charge. I have to be in.
There are control freak women too. Don't put that stigma on yourself. They come in all sizes and shapes.
All sizes, sex, shape, and everything here. Well, this has been a delightful conversation. I almost feel like we should have you come back and give more justice.
I want to learn more from you, Nicole. There's so much more we got to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're feeling something that we all aspire to. You're feeling the connection. You don't just believe in blind, please, I hope. You're experiencing it. And that's a path we all want to be on, because I think too many of us feel alone. Too many of us feel unconnected to the world, or to the future, to the afterlife, if there is one. We have to always preface it that just alone says it all. If there is one, I want to believe it's there. We still don't really know if we believe or trust or can let go of any of this stuff here. So
here's something that you can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just say yes to everything, whatever it is.
No, I can't do that. No.
Just say yes.
I have $1 million.
Just say yes to everything.
Yeah.
But why not? Somebody might give you $1 million.
Hey.
Say yes. And if you don't like something and it doesn't feel right, it doesn't resonate with you, you get up and you leave. Like, no, I don't have the $1 million to give you.
Oh, wait, Nicole, I want to co-author a book with you. I'll write the science part. I'll write the science part of it, and you can write the other side of it. I'm sure there's somewhere in the middle. There's some good nuggets.
Well, I'll leave you with this, because you started by mentioning Thomas Aquinas, because there's a college near you, and then that led you to sort of discover what somebody once wrote were the cardinal virtues in life, temperance, and I can't even remember them here. The four of them you rattled off here. What were they again? Temperance, justice,
prudence, and fortitude.
Fortitude, strength, to be strong. All right, those describe my father and his generation, the World War II. They were strong. They were honest and believed in justice. They persevered, and they were temperate in what they did. They didn't wildly blow money. They didn't wildly do things. All things in moderation was my dad's other motto. All things in moderation. You can do anything you want, but in moderation. Don't go crazy in anything here. So I'll kick back to some, other ancient wisdom here. And that is, this notion that somehow we have to discover all this. It's already out there. It's already out there. We just have to wake up. Maybe we have to hear it 100 times in 100 ways, but from people like you. But this is not new. This is new to us because we are so disconnected with the world and the afterlife and everyone around us here. Amazing stuff here.
Wow.
We could spend hours going through this. I welcome it. Tell us again, how do we find your book? Where do we get it? All that.
So it's on Amazon. So it's called I Can Still Hear You. That's the cover of it.
Nice.
And Barnes and Noble. If you're in Santa Barbara, it's at Chaucer's Bookstore, which is one of the last independent bookstores
Not
here
many
in
of them
Santa
left.
Barbara.
Yeah, not many of them
Yes.
left.
It's a good thing to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because there used to be a place you could go and browse, and you, like a library, you could just randomly go through the shelves, and then somebody could guide you. Hey, I'm looking for something like this, and then the curator, the librarian, the bookstore owner would say, "Well, have you tried this? And look at this."
That's what Chaucer's is like.
Yeah.
It's like taking a step back in time. They're so helpful there. I mean, I'm like, I don't know how we got so lucky in this town to have a wonderful bookstore like that, but
Not
I
many.
am certainly grateful for it.
Well, we're grateful
Wow.
that you came on today. Here, take us out, Dr. Trin. Did she open up? Or did she expose us
yeah.
any letters, practices, ideas, how to?
Still hear you. I can still hear you. Love it. I'm going to read your book here, and definitely, we are honored to have you here today with us for OC Talk Radio.
Really?
And it's all about living in the present. It's all about,
It's all about hearing. If she
all
says,
about
"I can
hearing.
still hear you," we got to hear what's out there
Yeah.
already. Yeah.
Let your worries to God. The past is done. Live now.
The future you have very little control over. It's live for the
Yes.
moment and live and be fully present. Hear what's there.
Yes.
Don't block it all out. All right.
Yes.
Thanks so much for coming here again. The name of the book is I Can Hear You. Nicole Black, thank you for joining us here this morning.
Thanks
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me on.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Another reason to tune in. If nothing else, quiet your mind. Open yourself to the possibilities that are out there all around you every day, including the possibility that, yes, you can send a letter to God and somebody will hear it.